guys. Just give it a couple of seconds here to let the audio kick in. Still having some issues with my phone here. It's actually March the 11th here. It's probably the 10th wherever you are while I'm filming this. 1:53 in the a.m. getting everybody to bed. Let's rotate this over a little more. Yes, I do still have Christmas lights up everywhere. My little guy still loves to turn on all the Christmas lights in the house, these little lights that we've got everywhere. So we're just going to leave them up as long as we need to and as long as he enjoys them. So judge me if you want, but it's the little things that keeps him happy that keeps me happy. So doing the Q&A here, I've got a lot of questions from, I'm trying to do my absolute best and get around to answering the questions. They're scattered kind of all over the place because I've been behind, guys. I know I've been behind. I got really, I don't know if I would say really, I got kind of sick over the weekend and went and trained anyway on Sunday. And then Monday was Green Monday, Clean Monday, the beginning of the fasting up to Easter. So it's a day with no meat. So, I woke up after doing events on Sunday. Monday's a pretty important day to get the food and calories in. And for me, Monday is the day that, it's a day that my son has, I've got to get him to afternoon speech therapy. And it's Atlas Stone Day. So, my whole Monday is kind of centered around that. And then I work after I finish training stones. But I do Atlas Stones normally at night. I take my son to bed around 8. And then he's asleep around 9. I normally have most everything set up outside before I start taking him to bed. So I can come back in, eat some rice or whatever, get a carb drink, and then just change clothes and go outside and begin lifting. So I can train from 10 till midnight outside. And midnight's kind of the time where you need to be finished, and not make any noise outside. And, I just kind of, Monday was just barely any food at the family gathering. And at least for me, it's canned octopus and basically raw vegetables. And man, just the whole day of not recovering. And I didn't do everything I should have recovery-wise Sunday after training. And I ended up not being able to train on Monday night. And then by Tuesday, I just felt horrible. Wednesday, I was too sick to go train. This morning, I woke up 2.5 hours before my alarm because I had one of those genius ideas about training. I really wish I could remember what the idea was because I would apply it. But I know that I woke up thinking about log pressing. The log press is tomorrow. So feeling a little bit better, trying to get some food. I've eaten, I don't know, about 1.5 pounds of salmon today. And I've got one more small meal, probably some eggs before I go to bed. So, and I'm drinking one of these way too late in the evening. But I opened it and I want to finish it. So, but I'm running behind all week. And I've got questions everywhere. So I want to try to answer all of them. Clarksville Barbell Club. He's really been commenting a lot lately, been really, really interactive. I really appreciate it, man. I'm assuming you're from Clarksville, Tennessee, because I'm from right up the road from you, an hour away, something like that. So we're basically from the same place. He's mentioned here that he's battling some bad bicep tendonitis. It's really bad on his pressing movements, both overhead and bench press. Any thoughts or tips on how to help it? And the discussion kind of went back and forth that he also does, he says Olympic lifting. It's weightlifting, not Olympic lifting. It's weightlifting. No actual weightlifter calls it Oli or Olympic lifting. It's weightlifting. That's the name of the sport. High bar, low bar, a bunch of different squats, things like that. Most bicep tendonitis, especially if you feel it when you're bench press, the first question I ask is, in relative to your press and in relative to your pain, when did you squat? And it's normally a day or so before, a day or two before. So I would change your pressing day so that your pressing day is before your squat day. Or I would switch to an SS yoke bar. It's absolutely worth the money to pick up an SS yoke bar. Elite FTS has them for quite often $325 to $375. And they offer free shipping a lot of times. I remember sitting at a table with Dave Tate. I would have been a few months out from qualifying for IWF, Masters, weightlifting, Pan Ams, and Worlds. And I mentioned to him that I thought that I could really take my snatch and clean and jerk to a different level if I was squatting with an SS yoke bar instead of a regular bar. And he pulled his off the monolift and put it in my car. So the SS yoke bar that I train with now, he put many miles on it before I got it. And it's just an absolute great bar. I would look at on your squats, if you have as many bars to train with, I would rotate bars as often as possible. You know, that's what you see me do in training. I almost never use the same bar 2 training sessions in a row. You know, back squat, camber bar, weightlifting bar, squat bar, front squat with a harness, manta ray squats, box squats. I rotate something, and I normally do 2 squats in a training session. One of them is pretty hard, and the other one a lot of times is paused with a weight up to like 330 with bands, which is a weight that I'm striving towards as far as loading with Atlas stones. But it requires a little bit of work. It carries over to another exercise, and it prepares me because that's probably the exercise that I'm going to do first the next week. Any kind of shoulder mobility is going to be great. Any kind of lat mobility is going to be great. I would foam roll on your lats and rear delts as often as possible. If you have a massage gun, I've got mine on the couch over there. So when I sit on the couch, I just use my massage gun everywhere. You can use that as part of your warm-up. I don't think a massage gun really does much other than kind of get rid of the pain before you train. But it can definitely help. I would also pick up some really hot cream. Equiblock is solid if it's a large area of muscle because it has the capsicum or whatever, the hot pepper stuff in it. I like Zostrix HP, I believe is what I would pick. What I pick up from Walmart or whatever, pharmacy every time I'm in the States. It's really, really hot. And I've got some stuff that I pick up, some Russian stuff. Phenolgon, it's really, really rare. It's difficult to pick up, but that stuff is fire hot. You never let it touch your fingers because it won't come off. And then anything you touch after that, you will not realize how many times you stick your finger up your nose or in your ear or you touch your daddy parts to go pee until you've used that and you've got a dab of it on your finger and you can't get it off. It's going to be there for days and it will set you on fire. But it's going to create blood circulation in that area. And if you have any kind of tendonitis, it's tendons, and those tendons don't have a lot of blood circulation in them. So you can use that hot cream to get the blood circulation in that small area, facilitates recovery. I would also, for a client asked me about elbow pain tonight, I simply went to YouTube and I Google searched Donnie Thompson Super D elbow. And it gave me 5 or 6 videos. There was also some from Kelly Starrett as well. With Mobility WOD, I trusted those guys like gold. So anything they would say, I would do. But I would switch bars. I would foam roll the outer lats and rear delts. I would use the massage gun. I would use the hot cream. You can also switch to when you're squatting, only hold the bar with, two fingers and a thumb and rotate these, 2 small fingers underneath the bar while you're squatting. It'll give you a little bit more rotation, and rotate your bars as often as possible. If those aren't options, keep messaging me, man. I'll keep coming up with plans. Let me see what else here. Man, I've got them all over the place. Let's find the video. Explorer 213. Can we get some responses to the Arnold? Is Martins beatable? Do I have any thoughts on his rehab until perfect approach, given my own struggles with health issues? Who will win the Eddie Hall Thor Bjornsson boxing match? Will it prove anything? Let's start from some responses to the Arnold. I didn't watch much of the Arnold, to be honest. I don't watch a lot of strongman competitions. I had some clients place top 10 in their category. I had a lot of clients there just watching. My training partner was there with his wife. I guess I had clients all over the place. So I spent most of the weekend messaging back and forth with them. making sure everything was okay with them. I watched Bobby Thompson's log press video, which is absolutely phenomenal. There are so many awesome things of what Bobby Thompson did at the Arnold. It's a phenomenal story within itself. If you just find a score sheet and just look at everything that Bobby Thompson did from event 1 to the final event, and you just watch how he progressed and moved, that's just phenomenal. It's absolutely amazing. Someone sent me the video of JF getting injured, and I stopped it because I had read that he got injured, and I don't watch injury videos at all, ever. So I turned that off and didn't see it, but I hope he gets well soon. The Arnold rumors that it's moving next year. That's a big one. I heard everything from being canceled to there being arguments between the Arnold camp and the people who run the facility, and he was moving. So we'll see what happens. Heard all kinds of stuff in the strongman community, what's going on there with organizers and gossip and stuff like that. But nothing is, if you've learned something in 21 years of being involved with a competitive strongman, is that nothing is final and definitive until it actually happens. Is Martins beatable? Absolutely. He's beatable. Yeah, I know it's going to be difficult for any American on his level to lose in an American contest. No matter what you say, traveling from one continent to the next changes a lot. So you're going to have to, the people who win and travel like that are always in amazing shape. They're never fat and out of shape. The people who can fly and compete and succeed are always going to be athletic and in shape. I think you can look across time and look at people who had to travel long distances and did well, and that statement will hold up. The shorter the distance that you have to travel, the less in shape that you have to be. Put that on a t-shirt. But is he beatable? Anybody is beatable at anything. I think Martins is a super athlete, and you ask about his rehab until perfect approach. I'm 44 with a lot of little things that are wrong and messed up. If my leg was not messed up right now, then I would be able to push a lot harder and make a lot more progress, and that would change everything for me. A lot of the situation where I'm in right now is I can't do max effort anything because, well, my foot doesn't work. Neither one of my feet. I can't wiggle my toes. I can't move my toes on either foot. So if you can't move your toes, then you can't get your hamstrings properly involved. You can't do anything without the possibility of falling over. I mean, I fell last night just walking across the room. Just all of a sudden you completely lose your balance. So pressing with a log is really, really interesting. Most moving events, I need a really tight pair of shoes that make my foot like a cast so it doesn't move. So I can do well on yoke with tight shoes. I can do well on frame. Farmers, there's some more movement, so I have issues. The more moving the event is, the more it requires your ankle to bend and straighten, your hamstrings to move. I mean, how many issues I've had on the deadlift and pulled hamstrings the last couple of years. Toes won't move. They're not going to curl. The hamstring's not going to be in the right position. And the hamstring's eventually going to pop. Glutes don't want to flex either. So it's one thing after another. So the more that you can rehab and make sure that your body is in perfect athletic working condition, the harder, more efficient that you're going to be able to train as well as perform on contest day. There's definitely some merit into that, but, I mean, he went out of his way to come out and say that he broke his back. I didn't watch the video, but I heard everyone talking about it. I said I don't watch a lot of strongman videos. And he still competed a few weeks later. So, I guarantee you something was hurting when he got there on contest day. I guarantee you some things were hurting when he got there on contest day. But he is very young. He is very young. And you and I both know that your body is different when you're younger. not that it just heal, I mean, of course it heals better, but every little mistake that we've made in life compounds, you know, and when you're in your 40s, you have all the I mean, like I can't sneak up on anybody. My ankles pop with every step. My son laughs about that I couldn't sneak up on anybody. But that's not from strongman. That's from years of fighting on concrete floors, jumping on concrete floors. Now I watch the martial arts scene now, and it's illegal to even have a contest without rubber flooring. I'm like, we competed on an ice hockey rink. They melted the ice the day before because we went to the arena in Boston to see the arena the night before, and there was still ice on the floor. And then the next morning at 7 a.m. it was gone, but that floor was still cold and it was still hard concrete. And we fought on that. I mean, I broke a kneecap in Orlando fighting on a concrete floor. I threw a kick and it got flipped and landed on a knee. And holy cow. But all of those little injuries, broken fingers, broken toes, you know, all of those things add up. And the longer that you're involved in a sport, the more they add up and the more those things take away from your ability to train at max effort. And they take away from your ability to train like an athlete and to move like an athlete. So him being young, he's made less mistakes. And no matter what you say, by the time he's in his 40s, little mistakes are going to catch up with you. Little mistakes are always going to catch up with you at some point. That said, I've got a couple of athletes that are basically at the top of the world when it comes to strongman in their 40s and 50s. And I've got some really good athletes in their 60s as well. Most of them have a small number of injuries. A small number of major injuries. They all have something that bothers them. I've got another client that has a drop foot, and I fully believe that he could win Masters World's Strongest Man over 50. Fully believe that. Given my own struggles with health, I mean, there's nothing that's going to change my immune system. You know, there's nothing that's really going to take away, you know, arthritis in my hands, which look, I've taken a lot of cortisone this week, and they're still red. I can see they're a little bit red across here. You can see they're a little bit red in here. But, you know, nothing's going to take away my actual health issues. But as far as current injuries, man, if those were gone, I could at least go and pull heavy without the worries of pulling a hamstring. Who will win the Eddie Hall-Thor Bjornsson boxing match? You know, I have to say Eddie's a friend. He's a personal friend. We speak on the phone. We video message back and forth. I know roughly what his plan is. I can see what his plan is. He's a friend. I'm always going to support him. And I know the side of Eddie that's not what you see on videos or TV. I know the actual really nice person goes out of his way to help. And I think a lot of people don't like that, his attitude online, because it's really kind of out there. But that's not his real life attitude. And you know, a lot of people don't like Thor because he comes across as arrogant, rude. He was in Cyprus asking people at a Comic-Con convention, I'm here in Cyprus, where should I go train? And then everyone is like, you want to train? Here, call Clint. I want to say like at least 10 or 15 people sent me messages or called me from the Comic-Con convention. They went to see Thor, and they're like, man, I saw Thor. I gave him your contact. I told him to call you to come train. And he wasn't interested at all. But I've talked to people that get him alone, and he's just a quiet person. And they will say that he's very, very helpful, but just a more quiet, calm, relaxed person who has happened to have lose his temper several times and say and do things against Eddie Hall, as well as the organizers of World's Strongest Man and Giants Live, which you can do in private, but not publicly, because they're his employer. And I think somehow he felt that he was their employer. And that's not the truth. There have been athletes time and time again that have pissed off the people who run World's Strongest Man, and they were never invited back again. So I hope they both do well. I hope Eddie is victorious. I hope they both look good. I hope Eddie looks the best, and I hope he comes out victorious. Will it solve anything between those two? I think it definitely will. The bad blood between them is, I don't know about Thor. I know the bad blood of Eddie disliking him. Eddie really wants to fight him. Eddie is also a businessman. He's one of the great businessmen of all time when it comes to strongman. People can criticize whatever they want to. I know I'm going off on a tangent. People here can criticize whatever they want to about Eddie Hall. But today's sport of strongman would not be anywhere where it is today without him. People can criticize his 500 kilo deadlift. They can criticize whether he should or should not have won World's Strongest Man. But without him and the 500 kilo deadlift, and then without him solidifying that by winning World's Strongest Man, Axel world record, nearly he's come as close to a 230 kilo log press as anybody in history. So people want to say that he doesn't have a log press. He's come closer than anybody else to hitting 230. Without him doing that and solidifying at World's Strongest Man, athletes would not be making the money that they are now by just being strongman. You can dial that down anyhow you like, any way you like, but that's the absolute truth. So it doesn't mean you have to like him, but he's done more for the sport since he's been involved than anybody else. He continues to do that, continues to lay the foundation. No coincidence he was the only non-American on that History Channel TV show. He was there for a reason. They knew it. He's the guy that everybody sees like, oh, that's the guy that deadlifted 500. So I think that's a pretty solid opinion. Okay, strength habits scenario. I have one elite weightlifter, one elite powerlifter, both with the amount of experience and same status, age, body weight, etc. Who do I think would be better in strongman within A, 1 year of training, and B, within 5 years of training? I'd take the elite weightlifter. Yeah, I think a weightlifter is normally focused on athleticism, speed, jumping ability, moving. Not saying they're in good shape. I've known lots of weightlifters that were just as out of shape breath-wise as a power lifter. But if I'm having to look between the two of them, honestly, the thing is elite. You use the word elite. So an elite power lifter is born. I'll tell you that. An elite weightlifter is by far born. I've worked with elite powerlifters who set all-time world records raw, squat, deadlift, not bench press. I've worked with several women who've bench pressed over 400, over 185 kilos, maybe over 190. But as far as the top elite world record setting powerlifters, they have freakish genetics. Most of them that get involved in strongman get injured very rapidly. It's different, and that's not to say it's them or the sport. That's more than likely the people who are helping them and not helping them lay the proper foundations of training principles. The same way they would a newbie power lifter setting down and say, hey, let's focus on this and this and this for your first 6 months or a year, and then let's push. They didn't do that. They just jumped in and said, hey, I'm going to do what everybody else is doing, which is Max Stone today. So, and they end up with something torn and hurt, and they're done before they ever get to compete. Turn the heat off in this place. Elite weightlifters are in most countries are chosen by their government. That's even, you look at the top weightlifter or the top 2 weightlifters in Cyprus, they're so far ahead of everybody else in the country. They were training since they were little kids, part of a doping program paid for by the government. But they're elite, and they're going to be elite no matter what. And strongman and powerlifting are still pretty much amateur sports, but the elite athlete, neither one's going to do absolutely amazing. But if I had to randomly choose, if you just told me I had, close my eyes and all I knew was that they were pretty much all the same, but they were at the top level of either top level of either weightlifting or powerlifting, I would take the weightlifter. Although I think most weightlifters would be totally shocked at the pain you get from strongman, but then I've worked with a lot of powerlifters who are absolutely demolished by the pain of strongman as well. So after 1 year of training, after 5 years of training, I don't think either one of them would stick with it after 1 year or 5 years of training. You're an insane person if you stick with strongman for 5 years. But if I had to choose, give me the weightlifter. That's just based on generic stuff. I had a question here. Clint, your dad passed away. Very sorry for your loss. My condolences. Prayers are with you. Appreciate that. What is something that he left you with as far as a bit of knowledge or a lesson? My dad, I don't think I realized how much my dad taught me at the time until I got older and had kids. And I think, as I got older and had kids, it changed my opinion on everything. So, my dad was absolute outstanding athlete. And as far as I remember a point in my life that my dad was only 365 pounds. So it's like 6 foot tall. So that would have been in his 40s. He was about 365. And then he spent most of his years in life well over 400 pounds at 6 foot tall or so. And I remember him at 365 and 400 playing basketball. I remember him dancing. I remember him at the skating rink, like full on out skating the teenagers in his classroom. Amazing stuff. And I remember that, I remember meeting people that would say, because my dad would say, yeah, I was a good athlete in school. And then I would meet people that would talk about playing against him in football. And they couldn't even explain what, they would just be like, man, nobody could even touch your dad. I mean, it was just, it was crazy. Like, he had moves that were just, how is he so fast? How did he hit so hard? How did he move us that way? How did he jump that high? And I'm looking at my dad like, my dad's a big, strong, kind of fat guy, and then I would see him play basketball and just, play like crazy. And then, he always mentioned about how good he was at baseball. And when I was real young, I tried to play baseball for many years. I was just terrible. And I remember, waking up, in a summer morning, he would wake me up and we would go outside, and we had a chain link fence all the way around our house. A big piece of property with chain link fence all the way around the house. And the goal was, every time there was a little rod, you'd stand 20, 30 feet away, and you got the ball, you throw it up, and you hit it. And he was okay, I want you to hit the ball, and I want you to hit that rod, and I want you to hit that rod, and I want you to hit that rod. I could never hit the rod on the fence. Never. And it was so frustrating. And he would just pick the ball up and ding, and that one, ding, ding, ding. I'm like, how is that even humanly possible? And this would be a guy that hadn't played baseball in 30 years. So every once in a while he would do something like that that would just blow your mind, because my dad was a huge storyteller. And if you've ever met my dad, you know that I am under-exaggerating when I say he was a huge storyteller. Talk your ear off for hours and hours and hours. Storyteller. Painful storyteller, if you had to listen. But I remember meeting some of his friends from when he would have been in high school, and they just mentioned that they had never seen a baseball. They'd never seen anyone play baseball like he did. And he was a shortstop, which is probably the most athletic position on the entire field. And they couldn't just say, yeah, he was good. It was always like, the stuff he did, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. But the point of that is my dad was such an amazing athlete, and his dad never saw him do any sport, ever. Never watched him do any sport at all. And my dad never missed anything that I did. Nothing. Really, not a practice, not a game, not a tournament. And now I'm 40 years old, and I mean, he didn't travel to come see me compete, but he gave me money so I could go to Masters World's Strongest Man, and he watched everything live as it was happening. I competed in martial arts last year online doing a Bokata, and that was big for him because that was something, the training and competing, everything, that's something we always did as a family, and then I got away from that as I got older. So to come back and to, compete online with a Bokata, and I can't fight because I'm taking a lot of medication and I'm not supposed to get hit because I bruise really easy, and any kind of brain hit could be a serious issue. But, never missed a thing. And I think there's something about that. So there's a lesson there. And all these lessons, I don't think that, he never said anything, but I learned that when you're in the car and a good song comes on the radio, you stay in the car until the song finishes. And I would like to turn that into some kind of big moral life lesson story, but I don't think it is. I don't think it's anything more than if a good song comes on the radio, when you park the car, sit in the car and you finish the song. And that was not anything we ever talked about, ever, never mentioned it. But it's something that I picked up, that if a good song was on the radio, he was going to finish it. And he comes from a time period where a song on the radio would have only been 2 minutes long. So it wouldn't have been that long anyway. But if you're sitting there to an Allman Band Brothers song, it could take a few minutes. I also learned that if you want something, never say no. Never let anyone else tell you no. I think that was a big thing for him. And he never said it. But, if you ever went over to the house, he always had a giant calculator. Always had a giant calculator. My dad was a genius in every sense of the term. And I don't mean he was really smart. I mean he was a genius. We're thinking like 30, 40 years, he always had a calculator in his hand doing math. What kind of math? I don't know. Just nonstop math. But I never came up with anything that I wanted that he ever said no to. He was a big fan of reverse psychology, and he even said it all the time. But he would sit down. I would come home as a teenager, say, I want to buy a Harley. Okay, which one do you want? Let's pick it out. Let's go to the Harley dealership on Saturday. You want to go to Paducah? You want to go to Nashville? You want to go to both? We'll leave early and we'll go to both on the same day. There's one up in Illinois we can go to as well. You want to go to that one too? We would get up and go. Come home, look at magazines. This was before the internet. And sit down and pick out everything you want. How much is it? What are the payments going to be? And then you look at it, and you keep looking at it, you keep looking at it. We did the same thing. I wanted a dual sport. Was it a KTM motorcycle? Drove and looked at it. Sat down, he came back home, looked at it again, went back and came back home and figured out what the payments were going to be. Well, you want this bike? This is what the payments are going to be. And he knew what the payments were off the top of his head. He could pull out all the financing, how many months, what the interest rate was going to be. I really mean he was a genius when it came to numbers. And it would basically get to the point to where, okay, this is how many hours a week you're going to have to work to pay for it. When are you going to ride it? And the thing was, he came from a time period where when he wanted something, he went to work and bought it. Bought everything. No help from us. He bought it, and he worked every minute, every hour to buy whatever he wanted. And I think that, I don't know. I don't know if that's what he wanted me to think. I don't know how many, I've always dreamed of getting a Suburban. I found a couple, a Suburban, a Corvette. We found a beautiful white one that is still my dream Corvette. Late 70s model with lake pipes and chrome, white. I don't like white cars, but that white one, oh my goodness. We found one and I test drove it and I put the gas pedal to the floor and it just did nothing. And then he's in the car telling me, put it down, see how fast it'll go. I'm like, Dad, that's it. That's as fast as it'll go. So obviously I wasn't interested in that. We found a Suburban that was just sharp, man. I mean sharp. And did the same thing, had no power, nothing, something wrong with it. And then 4 or 5 years before I left, I found the Suburban for me and figured out the payments and worked it out and bought it. It was one of the few things that we sat down and I wanted bad enough to find a way to make the payments. He never said no. He was the kind of person that believed that a man should have dreams. And you should do whatever you can to figure out what it would take to make that dream come true. And if you've done everything and figured out what it's going to take to make that dream come true, then and only then can you make the decision about, is it worth it? Is it worth the give and take to make your dream come true? And a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's not your dream. Maybe that's what he wanted me to understand. Maybe that's what, him being the older person, me being the younger person, wanted me to look out and say, hey man, think about what you're going to have to give up to get what you think you want. But if you want a car, go out and buy the car. I remember talking to him a couple of months ago, him going down the list of, I'm sitting on the computer saying, search this car, I had one of those. Now search this, it was in that color. And I'm looking at it thinking, man, that's awesome. And him telling me how much he had to pay for that and had to work for it, had to do for it, and then he, it came to the end, he's like, but if you don't like it, just sell it. That's fine. If you keep it for a year or two and it loses value, it doesn't matter because that value, he's telling me this, that value was you having the car and enjoying it. And here he is 75 telling me, who's 44, about how much he loved that car and all the good pluses. And I guarantee you that was worth, him telling me about it was worth every bit of payment that he had to pay on this car, that he was so sorry that he no longer has. 56 Chevys and just, some amazing cars that are just, you're just like, you had that car? Chevelles and I think those are the things that I learned. Do everything you can to be there for your kids. Never get out of the car when there's a good song on the radio. Maybe that's the most important one. And if you want something, figure out what it's going to take for you to have it. And if you still want it, no matter how impractical it is, get it. Absolutely get it. 3 things that I learned from my dad. Ego Andreas says, any tips for overhead strength? If we're talking about strongman, and this thing is, I bought Zavikas' overhead press book. And actually they never sent it to me. And then after contacting them repeatedly, they still never sent it to me. And I complained about it on Instagram, and someone else who it took, after paying for it, it took months for him to finally get his copy. He contacted me and he asked me that if I would show him my receipt where I actually did buy it, he would send me his copy. Because he wasn't about to send someone a copy of his copy if it was someone who didn't actually buy the book, which I thought was legit. So I sent him a copy of my receipt, and he sent me a copy of the book, and I was greatly unsatisfied with the amount of information that it gave. I really think that Graham Hicks should come out with a book about overhead press and how to develop it. And every conversation that I've talked with him, his concept of training, especially for the overhead press, and grip, I think he's a very undervalued resource when it comes to training and training methods. Especially from all of our private conversations, I always learn a lot from listening to him. And freaking Terry Hollins got a really bad overhead press, but talking with him, working with him, I think once he understands, so we had a few conversations, and once I think talking back and forth and talking things through about what made his overhead press go up, which was a lot of bodybuilding stuff. You know, he stepped away from strongman and went to bodybuilding, and after all the bodybuilding stuff, his strongman press on everything went up. So the understanding of all the reps and the high volume and not stressing his knees and back as much, how that made all of his pressing go up, was magical for him. But if you're looking at strongman, I think a lot of people focus on shoulders, triceps, and chest when they need to focus on technique and leg drive. Video everything from the front, video from the side. Send me your video. Andreas, send me your video and let me know that it's you, and I'll review your video and give you a couple of ideas. I don't mind at all, man. Just let me know that it's actually you and not somebody else, because I'm offering this to you and you only. But making sure that your positions are correct makes a world of difference, because an overhead press, especially a strongman or competition overhead press, is not just shoulders, triceps, upper back, chest. It's mostly legs getting everything up there. Don't be afraid to do high reps for shoulders. Shoulders mainly, I think shoulders always grow best from sets of 8. They really, really grow, but it's painful to do, but high volume makes the shoulders grow. So, you know, you always need, you know, that anything strength-wise is mental, physical, and technical. So mentally, you have to, you know, be able to mentally comprehend, you know, how we can do this and not be afraid of the weight. Physically, you have to be physically strong enough. I mean, the muscles have to be there. They have to be able to prime and play. And technically, if your technique is not right, then it doesn't matter how good you are at everything else. So mental, physical, and technical, if you address those 3 things in your training, your strength will go up. So I do want to ask, you know, what has helped your overhead strength in the past? Because if you know what helps your overhead strength, then all you need to do is continue to repeat that while cycling in a few new things all the time, because the older that you get, the things that work and don't work will change, because maybe some things that don't work now will work in 3 months or 6 months or 5 years or 10 years. You know, that's what I'm finding now that I'm getting older, is a lot of the stuff that I completely dismissed in my early 20s. I tried them and they didn't work. I completely dismissed them and threw them away in my early 20s and my 30s. Now they work. I'm at a different point in my life. My body is different. I feel different. My mental and technical skill is really high, but my physical skill is really, really low. So a whole new set of, you know, if you got the mental, physical, and technical, and all 3 of those things need to be balanced, well, your exercises have to balance there as well. So as right now, if my mental ability is really high and strong, my technical ability is really high and strong, my know-how is really high and strong, but my physical ability is really low, then that changes the exercises that fit and balance out my training program. So, you know, tips for overhead press, you know, for a lot of people, you know, the weaker you are, the more frequent that you need to press. The more time you need to spend on being technically perfect. And you can't get that, you know, like the 5-3-1 program. A lot of people, and I love the 5-3-1 program, but if you only have 1 set per week to go all out and perform, what if that set goes wrong? What if something happens? What if you just completely set up incorrect? What if you get a bad night's sleep the night before? Anything can go wrong, and you mess up that 1 set that's supposed to be your building and testing set of the week. Press multiple times per week, man. That's the biggest thing I would come up with. Ask me some more questions, man. Ask me more questions and send me a video. I will get back to you. Let's see what else we got here. I want to say there was something else popping up here. Oh, I had another question somewhere from somebody. Let's see, my training goals for the year. I can't say that I don't really have My training goals for the year are just to stay healthy. You know, right now my training seems and kind of feels kind of boring. I've got an MRI scheduled next Thursday. My wife got that done today, and we had to pull every string in the book to get an MRI next Thursday. So they're going to MRI whatever they're going to MRI to see what we can get done, and just continue to move forward with my leg and feet. So, you know, best case scenario is it's just something small. And we can fix it with physiotherapy. Orthopedic didn't think that was going to be the issue. So, you know, knocking on wood, some wooden Thomas the Tank Engine tracks here. I can tell you've got a kid when these are on the table. You know, we're probably dealing with a neurological issue that is dependent on an autoimmune disease, which basically means that the nerves are just going to start dying off at the end of my feet and working its way up, possibly from my fingers and working its way up as well. But seeing as how this is happening as I'm an older person, it would probably be very, very slow, or it wouldn't work its way all the way up. The other part is, you know, you hope there's not a tumor on the spine somewhere. So, I mean, that's another possibility, is you have something kind of growing on the spine, cutting off the nerves. Or, you know, in a hip, or, you know, somewhere else. So just going to wait and see what they come up with, and then just start moving. I wish it would move quite a bit faster, because here I am months into this, actually years. You know, I waited years into this to start, you know, seeing because I just kept thinking it would go away, but it didn't. But I'm going to do whatever I can do, and let that be where it is. All right, guys, this is 47 minutes into this video. If you have any questions else, send them. I'll do my best over the weekend. Kentucky plays at either 3:30 or 4 a.m. my time on Saturday. It's the first round in the SEC tournament, which means they will probably play again fairly early on Sunday if they win that game. I'm still loving the team. Win or lose, this is probably my favorite team from Kentucky ever. Win or lose. Favorite group of guys that I've ever had the pleasure of watching every game. So I don't plan on stopping now. Every single one of those players have an amazing story, and I could make video after video just telling you stories about those guys. But if you have more questions, keep putting them on there, and I will do my absolute best to keep saving them. And I'll put this video up again next week and answer all of your questions that I can next week. So guys, enjoy it. Talk to you soon.